This is Take Flights with Mark Whittle.
That's the Take Flight podcast.
Hello. I can't believe you're in my... I mean, it's the first human being I've had in here doing anything in months. It feels really weird.
Oh, well, weird in a good way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was in theatres. That's been weird, being inside theatres. But then having someone work in the house, you feel like you're doing something wrong. Even though we're like jabbed up and stuff. It's become taboo to be near a human being.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
No, I feel the same. Although I started doing face-to-face probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago. So,
Well, here we are.
here we are.
By the way, if that Hoover becomes annoying, let me know.
Okay. Can't hear, it's fine.
Cool.
I'm going to start off with saying I've had a number of people saying that we look alike.
Really?
Yeah. Would you
Well,
go with that?
I would say between 5 and 10, you look like my mate messages a week. Sometimes more. Some dude who I think he's the goalie for Argentina, Emilio Martinez or something. So I get him. David Schwimmer was obviously in the news, so I got that all week. I get Nick Grimshaw once a day, maybe, on Twitter. So I've got to the point now where I just resign myself that I look like a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some of them are really shit. I'm like, you look exactly like my husband. It's like really insulting. It'd be like some bald fat bloke who's about 80. But yeah, no, it happens a lot. I look like a lot of people. Sorry, this door's making a noise. Put that against it. I look like a lot of people, and fuck it. I look like a lot of people. I've got to get used to it. So there we go.
I used to get Milan Barros. Are you a football fan?
Not at all. No.
He played it. He played for Liverpool for a while.
Right.
But
I get a lot
think-
of footballers, but yeah, the goalie for Arsenal is who I get. But Nick Grimshaw is the most frequent one, to the point where I, obviously because it's in the same sort of line of work to me, we get muddled up at events and things like that. So
That must be frustrating.
not really. It's because I just use it for comedy material and
Yeah,
then talk about it on
nice.
stage.
Nice.
It must be frustrating for him getting muddled up with a bell end like me.
I read that you looked into your DNA and like your background, where you came from.
Yeah.
When did that curiosity start?
Well, my family tree ends in living memory. So my mum was raised by my great nan. So my mum was raised by a nan because my nan was, not at the most stable point in her life. So she was out having other families and enjoying Smirnoff or whatever. Other brands of vodka are available, and fucking were as well. So I think my mum, until she was about 15, lived with her nan, my great nan, who, bless her, through sheer force of will, just lived on till I was about 19 to make sure I was in a good place as well. So my great nan was a massive part of my life. That's why she's up there on the shelf. She's not that one. That's the drunken nan in the first picture. The second picture belongs to great nan, her mum, believe it or not. So she doesn't know where she came from. So when you grow up with someone who doesn't know where they come from, it's a mystery. So like if someone who helped raise you is an orphan, you want to solve the mystery. So I just wanted to solve the mystery of where my orphan great nan came from. Now, she always said that her mother was a maid with the surname Buschk, a German surname, B-U-S-C-H, and that she was impregnated by a Spanish count who fled the scene and gave the baby to a family in North London to be raised, but he always sent money. So she was raised by this family. And I said, Grandma, because that's what I called her, I didn't call her great-grandma. I was like, Grandma, can I get your birth certificate so I can see it? It was burnt, it was destroyed in a fire when Queen Charlotte Hospital was burnt down. Queen Charlotte Hospital did burn down, so I just assumed till I was about 21 that my gran was telling the truth. I didn't want to start digging shit up while she was alive. When she was deceased, I found out that her birth certificate hadn't been destroyed. Her birth certificate was real, and the person who gave birth to her really was called Buschk. That's the only thing I knew to be true. So then I was on the trail to try and find out, well, who got her up the duff? Where did she come from? She was raised by a random family in North London that she had no relationship to, that weren't a rich family. So it wasn't like a rich family that needed kids. They had 5 of their own kids. So why would you be taken in by a family that already has 5 kids in 3 rooms in North London? So someone was giving money to that baby to be raised. So I've always wondered. So that was why I got my DNA checked, expecting to see, because all of her story proved to be true. So I was like, it's going to be Spanish DNA. Not one drop of Spanish blood in me, no Italian blood, nothing. 48% British and Irish, 48-52, exactly like Brexit. I've got Brexit DNA. And the rest is just a mix of German, French and other Northern European DNA. I've just got very dark colouring, but I don't know why.
Huh. It's so... I'm drawing an incredible amount of parallels to that story. So, not to go too deep straight away, but when I was very young, I was told my biological dad left when I was very young.
Yeah.
So my daddy brought me up, who's my hero, and has sort of taught me all about this, the personal development world, taught me everything I knew about goal setting, routines, all that sort of stuff. He's a life coach as well. But I was told he wasn't my biological dad. So I had this curiosity from the age of 5 of like, well, fuck, you know, why
You'd
don't
already
I...
learnt 3 Nigerian dialects by that point. And you were like, how are you not my dad?
Oh, wow.
That's actually very close to a Lee Mack joke. Sorry, Lee, if you're watching.
Yeah, so we had that, and then I looked like my mum, like the spit of my mum, and I looked like my granddad.
Have you got Spanish or Italian or
Well,
something?
I've never. This is why I asked you, because I've never gone down the path of actually finding out.
You're definitely too dark to be 100% British. Same as me.
Maybe there's some resistance there from me, I think, to really find out. So.
I run it on 23andme.com and you'll just see your ethnic profile.
Yeah.
So I was disappointed. I was hoping for something much juicier, like I was a bit Ghanaian or something just fucking amazing, or Sri Lankan, or just something I could really talk about. But I'm just a complete milkshake. So there'd be a lot of, obviously, German from the German maid. There's a bit of Jew in there. There's a bit of Bavarian German. So they can be quite dark in Germany.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just a milkshake, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be a milkshake as well then.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best not to burst into fits of laughter during this chat. I was watching some of your stand-up yesterday. Oh, my God, mate. I was actually in tears, crying, in a good, like, happy tears.
Yeah, it's been good to get back doing it, to be honest, because we only opened on May the 19th, but I've squeezed in many hours of stand-up since then. I travelled 6 hours last night to do 8 minutes. That was my commute, to do 8 minutes on stage. It was a fundraiser. It was unpaid for Calm, actually, which is a brilliant charity. Yeah. So, yeah, it was great. And it was just, I just love it. That is where I feel at home on stage. I love all of this. I love doing TV. I'm on TV. I'm on daytime TV at the moment, of all places, and I'm loving that. Of course, I love the panel shows and being on chat shows. I love all of that, but I love most of all being on stage. 100%. That's where I'm supposed to be.
I'm an ambassador for Calm as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Interesting. I did a very long journey the other day to do a face-to-face podcast in Plymouth, but I don't think people would expect that from you. So you did 6 hours driving for 8 minutes?
No, I went by train. I travelled by train. So, yeah, train and taxis to get there. And then, of course, you got to get there an hour and a half before the gig. So the actual time I left Leeds at 3 o'clock and I got back in my door at 12:30 last night.
It was worth it.
Yeah, so it was great. It was 80 people in the audience, but it's being streamed as well. You can probably watch it. I just, I tailored the set. I made it all about mental health and men and all that. I just loved it. But then the other day I did like 2 hours a night in Grimsby. So that's the other end of the scale, just doing way too much content. I'm just completely hungover from being funny the next day.
So Russell, part of the podcast Take Flight is about learning about the leap of faith people took into the success that they've now seen, right? They didn't know at the time, but they took a risk into something. Yeah. So from what I've read about you, again, you were, and I actually loved what you did previously, but you were in marketing. You're in a marketing agency. But you decided to ultimately take that leap of faith. So I'd love to hear the story of you being there and deciding to actually go full-time and have a go.
Yeah, so we have to start further back, really, because if I came from a privileged middle-class background, it wouldn't be such an amazing thing that I was working as a copywriter in an integrated advertising agency, is what I used to call it, to try and big myself up. You're absolutely right. It's marketing. If you think about it like a species and then a subspecies and a family, the way taxonomy is done, marketing is the big thing, like animal kingdom, and then underneath it you've got advertising, PR. They're all different families. So we were sort of an integrated advertising agency. What that means is we did the very low end of advertising, terms and conditions, win a flight with this Snickers, things like that, as well as a couple of telly adverts and big billboards and branding. So I did a bit of everything and I loved it. But people watching this who might have been a bit luckier in their background to me might not be able to realise the jeopardy of leaving what's quite just a normal job, really, even though I loved it, to do something like this that I'm doing now. But to get there that really was the bigger leap of faith, I think. There were two massive leaps I had to make. So when still the number one predictor at the time of recording this, hopefully you're streaming this in like 2035 and laughing at how things have changed. But if you're streaming this in 2021 or 2022, time of recording, the number one prediction of where you'll finish in life is not whether you visit a personal development coach or whether you listen to me or whether you eat right, it's where you're born. That's the number one thing. So if you're born in a council estate to a single parent and your mum earns $9,000 a year, that is 80% likelihood what sort of fate you're going to end up with. And that is a right kick in the nuts to everyone that you want to appeal to with this, who thinks they're in control of their destinies. But the reality is the 20% that are watching this have already made the hardest decision to make that change, Shamon, as we used to say before Michael Jackson turned out to be a bit dodge. So it's a bit of an illusion that you're in control, I'm afraid.
But we can change, though.
It's dominated by people like us that have the strength to do it. So people like us that have that little extra genetic fucking quirk that enables us to make that change, Shamon, dominate this environment, giving the impression that anyone can do it. The sad reality is that we're made different, with different energy levels, with different chemical balances in our brain. Lots of people will attempt the journey and many will fall. And it's just a statistical fucking fact that cannot be got round with any amount of positive thinking, that even if you watching this and go, well, you're talking shit, I've done it, you've done it, where you are born, and it's disgusting, dictates where you end up. So we need plenty of personal development stuff like this mixed with real structural change in society. It can only do so much, people like you and I getting working class people and going, you can do it just like us. If you're already pregnant at 19 and you've got 2 kids and you're fucking working on a minimum wage and you're eating a shit diet, you probably won't even be able to finish this video we've made before you fall asleep and your day starts again. That's the world a lot of people live in. They're at the bottom of a pit. You can't just throw a bit of string down and go, grab on. So that frustrates me, that's worse than when I was 18, that situation. So you're more likely now to be trapped from where you start based on the social. So what I'm saying to people watching this is, don't feel bad if you're watching this going, fuck off, I'm knackered. So you've got to get past fuck off, I'm knackered. Find a way through it. That's what I had to do. So I was born to a non-divorced household. That was my first thing that saved me. My mum and dad were undivorced. Yes, I grew up. My first home, my very, very first home, in fact, was a mother and baby shelter. So my mum and dad were homeless. Because they realised we weren't going to get housed. So my mum sort of evicted herself from my great nans, made herself homeless thinking we'd get a council house, and we didn't get one. So my mum's given birth and we still got nowhere to live. So I was in a mother and baby shelter. So my dad had to go to work and just visit the shelter at night. So there's other women there. Most of them were like domestic abuse victims or junkies or whatever. So my mum was like a normal working class mum, but I happened to be in a shelter. So I went from that to council flat to council house. So I grew up bog standard council estate kid, incredibly bright, loads of energy, definitely different to everyone else. Did it make any difference? Did it fuck? There I was at 16, no GCSEs, weed over the park, trips, MDMA, you name it, I fucking ate it. I didn't inject anything or snort anything, but I was like fucking hungry caterpillar through whatever was going. And that was it. I was done, I was cooked. Spat out the system at the other end, exactly as I've described. I was working class kid, not as bad off as all my other friends who were still in the tower blocks, who were doing more manual labour. I was working in a shop, which is a cut above manual labour, selling Rolex watches. Nice little income, 10 grand a year basic wage, 1% commission. Maybe I was earning 14 or 15 grand a year, which was a lot more than my friends were earning. And that's it, I was cooked. You did that all week and then you went clubbing at the weekend, hard house, going your tits off, depression till Tuesday, repeat. Done, finished. Decided by the system. And I was the brightest and most energised out of my friend. And there I am cooked at 18. This is where the one element that's always missing from personal development courses comes in. You must acknowledge it. Luck is part of it. It doesn't mean you can't control luck. You can. if I would totally push people to a book by Richard Wiseman. Richard Wiseman's a popular psychologist, really easy to read, very engaging. If you're working 2 jobs and you're knackered, get the audiobook, listen to it instead of listening to music. It's an amazing book. You can make yourself more lucky. I don't mean you can change your lottery numbers, but what I mean is you can have more luck. And it's about changing your mindset and your outlook, which you'll know. So they run, I know I'm really whittering on here. Sorry if I'm going.
No, please. I love it.
So they run an experiment where they got people who describe themselves as unlucky and people that describe themselves as unlucky and put them in a room together. Do you know this experiment?
Yeah, the lucky and the unlucky.
Yeah. Do you know the experiment with the newspaper? You do know it, right?
No, so, please tell it. Though.
So
it's not been said on here before.
They told them that in this newspaper is a hidden box, and the first people to see it win £5. Right, so they're going through the newspaper. Page 2 was a full-page advert that said, "It's a trick. Don't listen to the experimenter. Stop reading now. Hand in your newspaper. Receive the reward." All the unlucky people missed that page. Oh, I bet I'm never going to find it, because in their heads they're already losers. I'm never going to find it. The lucky people are like, "What the fuck? It's a trick. I'll have my £5, please." So what I'm saying is, there's a lot of luck. You know, you didn't turn your head. You didn't see the £20 on the floor. Your friend did. That's not because your friend's more lucky than you. That's because his eyes are more open. He's got that meerkat mindset I don't mean the brand meerkat. I mean the looking around. That's something you can control. You can turn your head more. You can look. So there I am, 6 a.m, Strawberry Sundays nightclub, full ready to go home. Had one too many sherries. And through the smoke comes this girl, 1 inch taller than me. Looks like she's just come off a catwalk, dark hair, skinny, like that drawn look that was in at the time. Model look. I never dated a bird that like I was single at the time. I mean, I had one girlfriend. I'd slept with one girl. She comes across, no words, puts her number in my hand. So she'd obviously been just watching me dancing all night or something. And just like the look of me, or like my personality, because I'm always up the front dancing. I've got this landline number on a bit of paper. I called it the next day. "Hi, my name's I'll change your name. My name's Chloe." And then we just start dating, start shagging. I fall in love after one snog, I'm in love. "I love you," like that 19-year-old love. And this is where the accident comes in. This is where the luck comes in. She had just left home because she was doing her first year at university. So I'm working in the watch shop. I'm on the treadmill of working class loser. Not loser, sorry if you don't, but you know what I mean. The loser in that the system's gamed against us. So the system is gamed against working class people. I don't care what colour you are, black, brown or white, the system is gamed against you if you start from a poor background. And I'd lost at the table bit. And so I'm waking up in halls every morning. And instead of walking out of halls and getting on my train, I did do that. I'm watching this girl. It caused a few problems in the start of our relationship, wandering out to sit on grass and read posh books like you got behind me and ponce off about what Jane Austen was talking about, and then rolled off to a lecture, get pissed at night, no commitments. Her dad was a builder, but had bought her private education. So there's nothing genetically superior about her. And I'm like, oh my God, the whole thing is a trick against working class council estate kids. I'm not being horrible to my ex, clearly brighter than this girl academically, so far as maths and English and all that go, which I'd done nothing with because you got bullied if you did well at maths and English at my school. So I had an A, a B and 3 C's, just enough. And I went to work, I think maybe like the 3rd time I'd kipped over at hers, and I wrote in my diary, "Fuck that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to get a degree." So I went home that night, I sent off for A-levels through the post. By now I'd had a row with my dad, so I'd gone down an accommodation level. I was living in my nan, the alcoholic one. I was living in her council flat, housing association, in a box room. I didn't even have a wardrobe. I had to hang my clothes on the wall and stuck on hooks. I was actually travelling home with a knife at this point because I had an altercation with a lad opposite. Nothing had happened, but I thought something might, which is stupid, but I was walking around with a knife on me. And so it's pretty about as far as you can go. You're living in a council flat in a box room, carrying a knife to go to work, getting stoned on the way to it, stoned on the way home. But I sent off for these fucking A-levels, and I did them every night. And I redid sociology A-level, and I thought all I've got to do is get to 21, and you're counted as a mature student, so the threshold drops. That's another little life hack. If you fucked up your GCSEs, if you wait till you're 21, you're counted as a mature student, but you're not. So you can still party with the 18-year-olds, but you get the benefit of the academic breaks. So I only needed one A-level. Aced that, got an A grade, got the fastest ever A grade for sociology at that point from enrolment to sitting the exam. I had to sit the exam on a table on my own, separate from the local college. The invigilator could see me and the other students. I'm on my like special peasant table. Aced that, went to uni. By now I was unstoppable. It was like someone had punched Mike Tyson and he was like, hang on a second, I've got the harder punch than anyone who's ever hit me. Got a first every module, first for my degree, the only first for that year for English and media. That's the biggest leap I've ever made in my life. That. To go from smoking, raving, this is what we're supposed to be. I actually wrote in my diary, I'm going to die. I wanted to die at 40, not because I was depressed, because I thought I want to absolutely party and then go from an overdose. Not on a purpose overdose, just die in the sea in Ibiza or something. Why would you want to live past 40? I don't want kids. I don't want to get married. I just want to fucking get off my tits and sell watches. That was my life plan. And I went from that to, no, I'm going to get a first in English. To leave the stable working class job selling jewellery, which I was good at, to live on £50 a week, pouncing about with the books you see behind me. At this point, I wasn't like, I always read as a child, but I never did anything with. I never read anything. I didn't know who Jane Austen was. I didn't know who Charles Dickens was. I knew what Macbeth was because we'd done that for GCSE. That was it. So I had to not just read the texts to get a first in English with the posh kids at uni. I had to catch up with all the books I'd never read, aged 11 to 16. So what I did was, these books behind me are alphabetical. Jane Austen there. All the way through, that's Evelyn Waugh, all the way through to Émile Zola at the end there, A to Z. He's French translated. So I was getting up at 6 before my first lecture, and I would read a Jane Austen, I'd finish that, then I'd read a Charlotte Bronte, and then when I'd read that, I'd read maybe Arthur Conan Doyle, Dostoevsky. I went A to Z, back to the beginning. So I started to be able to talk intelligently in the student bar. I had no vocabulary. I didn't know how posh words were pronounced. I was like some fucking Afghan teenager without English because I could speak working class English, but I couldn't speak middle class English. I didn't know what any words meant. Nothing. I had to learn them from scratch. And I'll never forget, the first word I encountered was in the first book I read that wasn't on the syllabus, which is Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice up there, the one with the blue spine. And I said, every time I encounter a word I don't know, I'm going to collect it on an index card. And I'm going to learn that word, and I won't use it on purpose like a bellend, but I'm going to wait until the first time it occurs to me naturally in my brain, because that's like when you're learning French or German, then you know you're actually speaking it. So the first word was impudent, funnily enough, considering the boldness of what I was about to attempt. Of course, didn't know how to pronounce impudent. If you never heard anyone use it. My friends don't talk around that. Spliff is somewhat impudently rolled. It's not something. So, is it impudent? Is it impudent? You can make a complete dick of yourself with the posh twats. So I had to learn the diacritic alphabet because Google, although the internet was there, you couldn't press the translation, the speak out loud button yet. So the diacritic alphabet is all the marks that sit on top of letters which guide you in how to pronounce a word. I had to learn that. So once I learned that, I knew it was impudent with the emphasis on the first syllable, which you would never guess from reading the word. It looks like impudent. So I had a dash on the im. Impudent. Then I learnt the cognates of it. Impudently, impudence, the nounal form, the adjectival form, the adverbial form. And that was one card. I collected, I think, 3,500 cards. I know all those words. And I would do them on the toilet while I was walking. People thought I was revising for exams. I wasn't. I was manually expanding my vocabulary like steroids, and I was so guilty about it. I was so embarrassed that the cards were buried in my room behind a hidden row of books, and I burnt them when I graduated because the thought of anyone seeing them, it was like my language wasn't really mine. I was like a fake sort of thing, like a fake Rolex. It wasn't real. And I didn't want people to think if they heard me walk into a room and use the word impudent, I was just showing off and I was using language in a fake. That's what you call a leap of fucking faith. Leaping from the fact that I then, because I got such a high mark on my degree, and yes, it was English, but it had a commercial component, media writing. So I was picked out from my degree by the advertising agency, which was amazing. So I'm now sat on pink fluffy couches. I've got pedigree cats. I'm thinking up shit for a living. I've got funky hairstyle and weird shirts. I'm a middle-class creative professional living in London. I can't believe it's happening to me. But to go from that to stand-up, don't get me wrong, it was, to say to my mum, who's still at this point scrubbing the toilets of the rich, I'm going to give up this job of work. I'm the first person in my family to get into marketing. I'm going to give it up to try stand-up. It was a risk, but it wasn't that much of a risk, because if I fucked it up, I could go back and do marketing. I could go back and do advertising now. So yes, there was a bit of a risk in doing it for 6 months, and I could have lost my flat, and I could have fucked up my mortgage, and I had saved $6,000, and when that ran out, it ran out. That was a massive gamble, but sat on top of a brilliant career in copywriting. That's nothing compared to putting yourself through uni, generating all that debt for what? To know who Jane Austen was. That was the leap.
Amazing. I absolutely love that. Thank you, mate. I also feel like because you did the first leap,
yeah,
maybe the second one felt a bit easier.
But this is what people don't understand about privilege. The second leap was easier because I then had privilege. I had a degree. I had a flat in Clapham worth 280 grand, and I was sat on about 8 grand of savings. So I knew I needed £300 a week to live on. So I had 12 months of security to try stand-up. I would have known by 10 months if this was not a career. I've been doing stand-up and working at the same time. So I was doing 12-hour days at the agency, then getting in my car and sometimes driving 3 hours to do 10 minutes in Manchester and driving home again. It was dangerous, really, to my health. And I was just about able to do both without the quality suffering in the first year. By the third year of doing both things, quality was suffering, not on stage. I was getting a reputation. Who's this new guy who's still got his day job? But my creative director was like, mate, this is, you're taking the piss now. You're looking tired. We've got big clients, Vodafone, Carlsberg. You need to be So I had to make a decision. I had 5 years of agency experience. So it's kind of you to call it a leap, but we must acknowledge people who are leaping with a little safety net of cash and degree privilege is different to the leap of someone that's got nothing and no one, and a mum or dad that's saying you're on your fucking own, you've got no support, which is what my first leap was like. I got no support at university, not one penny from anyone ever. My dad gave me a £5 once when he was pissed in my second year. That's it.
What you're talking about really, when you talk about coming from a particular location, is conditioning.
Yeah.
So what I understand about conditioning is that we're brought into a world and our mindset is shaped by the people, whether that's teachers, parents, sports coaches, friends, whoever it is around us. Our mindset and our view of the world is shaped by that. And if you imagine like a ski slope, talking about privilege, imagine a ski slope.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fresh powder is, there's grooves that go in that fresh powder the first time through. And if you think of that as a thought, the more we have that thought, the deeper that groove gets, And then we start to look at it. And that's what that experiment essentially demonstrated is that if you're not looking for those things, of course you're not going to be lucky.
Yeah.
But I have to believe that the moment you had in your ex-girlfriend's room when you suddenly realised what is available to you, there's a quote, you can't be what you can't see. You suddenly saw there's something else available. There's something else out there. And I think that your story here, or any other piece of personal development content, can help with that person going.
Totally agree. We've got to acknowledge how much damage can be done, though. So I wasn't damaged. Yes, okay, I grew up and it was just drenched in drugs where I grew up. It's not my mum and dad's fault. We lived in a perfectly nice, we bought our own council house. It was just fucking drugs everywhere, and you're not taught that you can get a degree at my school. It just wasn't a thing. It was never mentioned. No one ever mentioned A levels to me. I didn't even know they were a thing. So that's the environment I grew up in. Had I been sexually abused, beaten, taken heroin when I was 14, if I was a girl if I was pregnant when I was 15, it is much, much harder. You can see stuff. You can see them all day long. If you do not physically have the resort, I'm not saying I want to live in like a Jeremy Corbyn socialist state, because I don't. But if you do not have the strength and resources to get there, we do have different strength. By the time we hit 18, 19, we've all got different things have happened to us. And I had a great childhood, really. I was never beaten by my dad. I never went without a meal. We started to go on holidays when I was 12 abroad. A lot of people didn't get to do that. And I think sometimes people like you and I particularly, we have to realise that it's the equivalent. If it was a physical disability, no one would go, just get out the chair, mate. Just get. If I'd smashed your fucking legs with a hammer since you were 12 to when you were 18, and then went, well, if you just look for stairs, you'd think it was absurd. And I think sometimes people, because it's hard for us to imagine if we're full of strength like I am, can be so broken that they can see the grooves and opportunities all day long. They literally can't get out of the chair. They're damaged there. They might need help first. They might need financial support. I think there needs to be more resources, and then I think people can follow this. I realise I'm talking about extreme cases, and a lot of people are like you, just wasting, you and I, wasting opportunities that are there. But there's this hard crust of people that we need to show like more compassion for, I think.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. You're absolutely right. Interested to know from your perspective then, that period when you went to university and just grafted and worked and just did it yourself, you know, put the whole world on your back, independent, head down. Yeah. Was that you changing your conditioning, or was that you, had you been conditioned to hard work already? Because you mentioned earlier, like your dad worked and brought the money in even when you're just born, wherever you were, like, you know.
There's definitely that. There's definitely a graft till you die philosophy. That's all working class people though. There's nothing unique to me. Anyone who's grown up like that, you know, it's my dad was very suspicious of benefits and all of that. There's a distinction in the working classes between those who sign on and those who don't. There's a snobbery there. So I was what we call upper working class in the end. So definitely in there. But I would say it was closer to anger, what I experienced. And anger is very powerful. You shouldn't be afraid of it. We spend a lot of time doing like mindfulness in the morning and then getting rid of anger. I would say be careful with some of that shit. If the anger's not causing you to put your fist through the wall and mess up your relationships, maybe try and use it a bit more. I was furious. And as I say, it caused a lot of problems with this girl who I was deeply in love with because I was jealous and angry of the way I'd been treated by the system. I wanted to hit back. And every time I learnt a new word, it was like punching some posh fuck in the face. Every time I got a higher grade than everyone else, it was like winning a fight. So there was an aggression there. There was a fuck you there. There was like, I'm the toughest kid. No, I'm fucking daddy. There was a bit of that. That's what gave me the energy to follow the hard work conditioning.
So was that because I'm the same, by the way. I had anger for... most of my life, probably until the last couple of years. Yeah. And I played football, so I had sport to channel that somewhere as well. And when I stopped playing that, when I was like, fuck, what do I do with all this? Yeah. But I think you're absolutely right. Anger can be the best fuel. How's that changed then? Because
it hasn't.
It hasn't.
Have you seen me on stage?
Yeah.
I just thought I've used it. Energy is my thing. Something switched. Everyone talks about nervous breakdowns when I lost it. No one ever talks about, we need a new phrase. It's not a light bulb moment. It's not a realization moment. It's a form of madness, but in the other direction. Something broke that day, or rather, something joined. That day when I wrote in my diary, I'll never forget it. I'd had a row with Chloe, as we're calling her, that morning. I'd got on my shit train in Tottenham. She was in the Tottenham campus of Middlesex University. I'd gone into work, and it was like not the people who were overseas, because a lot of my clients when I was selling watches were foreign and that didn't affect me. What triggered me was when it was posh dad with son coming in to choose his Rolex. I wanted to hurt them. Yeah. I wanted to fucking replace the son. What is that? How could that not be there the day before and be present? Now, if I'd have gone negative and in a chair and had to have antidepressants, you'd call it a nervous breakdown. So what is it when it goes in the other direction? It's not a manic episode because it's been sustained for 23 years or something. No, 20 years. It's a nervous break up. But that sounds like something snapping.
I think it's an energy shift. It's an energy shift, a perspective shift.
Permanent though. It's permanent and physical. It wasn't like let's make a note in my diary of the way I look at the world. There was a physical energy. Something just shifted, and I did not change my lifestyle. Very unhealthy, still on it every weekend. So you can't say I was looking after myself. No exercise, eat shit all day long, burgers, pizzas, crap. Still smoking a spliff on the way home, but after I'd done my A-level homework. And so now it's the same. It's how can I get that commissioned? How can I be the best I can be on stage last night for my 8 minutes?
I think that's the difference though, because honestly, it was all from anger, and it was like almost like a fuck you, but not just fuck you, fuck everyone. You know, I'm gonna do this by myself. Yeah, and I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. And now it's changed to I want to prove it to myself.
Yeah, there is that. I still retain a little bit, prove it to everyone else, but that's the nature of my business. Comedy is very dangerous, I think, if you just want to make yourself happy. You need to keep yourself quite low status, and the audience above you, make them cynical in your mind. Make the other I have great relationships with other comedians, but you need to put a pretend cynicism around you, so that you're it's probably something to do with my dad. You're always displaying to someone that isn't actually there, in a healthy way. I don't know, ever since that day, if I put my mind to it, if I want to write a novel, I will just go through it in 6 months and write it. And it's like, it is a form of madness, but a good one.
Where would you have been without that? Do you think that was inevitable? It was going to happen for you at some stage?
I don't think. I absolutely don't, because I don't. If I hadn't seen the inside of it, how else would I have seen the inside of a university? I was getting in with this girl's pass. It was going in and seeing it. I went to A-level college, Hertford Regional College, and we just fucking did so. I did more trips there, out on LSD, I mean, than any. How I didn't get any A-levels, obviously. So I'd seen what a college environment was like, sitting around, but it was, people with baseball caps on, and it was rough, it was more like a borstal. So I'd never seen this sort of gentle, lecturer with the glasses on the end of their nose, people with cider being posh on the lawn, and I went to some of her nights at the uni. I went on some of the nights out. There's no threat of violence. There was no one getting punched. It was like, I was big into like racial unity and all that because of the raves I was going to. So, I was into all of that, and I saw the intellectual version of that. So it aligned with my personal politics, but in a gentle, it started as I just want to do this for 3 years. Imagine getting out of bed at 10 a.m. for 3 years. I couldn't believe it was possible, and all I had to do was psychotically study sociology. Of course, sociology was probably the worst thing I could have picked. I picked it at random off a website because I thought, I'm class, I'm sort of interested in that because this posh bird I'm seeing. Of course, it made it 100 times worse when you realise that where you're born, how you're born, if you're born female, if you're born black, you can do 100 million personal development coach courses. If you're born black, you're going to be pulled over by the old bill more than I am. And there's fuck all you can do about it. You can personal develop your ass out of the world. You will get pulled over. That is not fair. I can't bear stuff that's not fair. And the fact I was born on a council estate meant that I was something like 85% likely to end up earning a similar amount of money as my dad. That's not fair. It ain't fair. And I thought, fuck that unfairness. I want to try and do something about it.
That's so interesting. If I reflect back on what my angle was from it, was the same thing. Like decisions made before I was here, or capable of making them for myself. It's interesting though, because these systems, if we want to go bigger picture, it's like the government, the societal experts, everything. We just landed in this place with, all these people who have made these decisions beforehand. So how can we operate happily and optimally within that? Still having anger and frustration towards that, but how can we be?
Well, you need to do all those things that we're doing, and then if you've got the energy, be involved in some of the other stuff. I mean, the conversations are happening. Me Too has happened. I think men will absolutely think twice before making some dodgy joke about a girl's boobs in the office forever from now on. And maybe they'll think twice about paying women less just because she might get pregnant after you've employed. So those things are already happening. I get it. It's not, if I'd been born a woman, I'd be earning less as a stand-up. How the fuck is that? That's totally ridiculous. Even if I was just as funny. How is that fair? It's not. It's stupid. It's thick as shit. People will laugh in 200 years' time. People will laugh at us as fucking cave people because we pulled people over in cars because they were brown. I mean, how thick is that? So, and these conversations are happening. Black Lives Matter. In my industry, yes, I know we've gone a bit mental and everyone whines about it online. And the pendulum will swing back. The conversations are happening, so don't worry about that. In the lifetime of people watching this, those things will sort themselves out. The one thing that I can't see being sorted out is the social mobility gap. That's the next one. I think that's the next Me Too. That's the next Black Lives Matter. I'd love to be involved in that, because obviously when it comes to Me Too and Black Lives Matter, there's only so much I can say without looking like cringy white man trying to get in on it. But if it comes to social mobility, poverty, whatever that label it gets, I'm going to be there, with my fucking placard in this, because finally it's my time to get angry about those injustices. And I think there's a lot to be said for a bit of unity between groups that have all been given short change at birth. They like to carve us up a bit. And I was reading an article yesterday. Unfortunately, it came from a Tory place, the article, saying that terms like white privilege are holding poorer white boys back because it's putting a divide between poorer children of colour and poorer white children. I don't think that divide should be there, because if all the people that have less got together and we're like, I don't care if I'm white or I'm black, or she's female and I'm not, or you're non-binary, we've all been shortchanged here. And now we're going to make a change. That's it. Then you'd see the order rebalance.
Maybe I'm naive or blinded or rose-coloured glasses or whatever, but I really believe that anyone can change their circumstances.
Oh, anyone can, but
not everyone will.
Up until the point where there's chemical developmental damage in the brain. I mean, I don't talk about my brother much, but he's obviously an incredibly extreme example. He did not survive the system I went through, and he's still very ill to this day. He doesn't even live independently.
Is it because of the system?
No, I mean, it's because of the social milieu is what I mean. I don't mean like that there's someone like Boris isn't pulling levers to hold the working man down or anything like that. I'm not like a mental conspiracy theorist. I just mean he didn't make it through. He didn't have the natural academic ability I had. This is the other thing that never gets addressed, the difference between introverts and extroverts. That is genetic. There is nothing you can do about it. You cannot read a book and change yourself from an introvert into an extrovert. What you can do is read a book and work out how to optimize the introvert's amazing talents and skills that bellends like me don't have. We as a society need to get better. If we're in a brainstorm now, and there's 6 of us filming this, and we were talking about personal development brainstorm, I guarantee it'll be edited, so all my shit sounded amazing, and it looked like Lottie didn't have anything good to say, because we have a prejudice towards people like me who are really good at, once they get going, speaking and making a thought sound good. So we need to get better at harnessing talented, introverted people in the school system. So my brother just sunk to the bottom. He just didn't do well at school. He didn't make friends as well as me. Obviously, so when we both hit the rave scene together, he went chemically a little harder than me, maybe, and he just fucked his life. He's to the point where he's literally never worked. He doesn't live independently even now. He's really struggling. So there are natural genetic things that do make a difference. If I was too shy, if I'm so shy that my face goes red and I have a panic attack if I'm trying to present my CV in a meeting, that is an issue. And it's an issue that's hard to get around by reading an engaging book or watching a blog. Yeah.
But it's all having the self-awareness. Like you said, if you know yourself to be introverted, go and read Quiet by Susan Kane.
Amazing book. That's the book I'm thinking about when I'm speaking.
Cool, yeah. So, the best book about being introverted. And also, I've spoken with a lot of introverts who might seem extroverted. Yeah. Not you. But seem extroverted on social media, but actually behind the camera, they're really quiet. But there's something special about that as well, that when they do speak, everyone listens.
But it's the extroverts that need to read Susan Kane's book.
Yeah.
Because the problem is... The problem is we don't set up to heart. If you look at you've seen it in the last year. Chris Whitty goes on telly and everyone makes fun of him because he's a bit like, it's like someone sort of put Harry Potter in a melting machine. He looked, or Dobby having a panic attack, whatever it is. The loudest, most charismatic politician doesn't necessarily have the best ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Newsflash.
But I think this would come back to media, commercialism, fucking clickbait, all this bollocks, because people just want you to, mainstream tabloids and all this, that is, that's what people class as important. And it's almost like you need to tell people to stop reading that shit, stop giving importance and placing importance on that content. It's tough though. I think we've had mass change in the last 18 months with the pandemic, and as you said, Me Too before that, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There is so the reality is, the poorer you are, the more female you are, the blacker you are, the bigger the tools that you describe are going to feel in your hand. Those tools are available to everyone, but they feel a lot heavier when you pick them up if you're poor white boy like me, or if you're a black woman from a poorer background, same tool on the floor, go and pick it up. Why is it so much heavier in my hands? So it doesn't mean you can't lift it. You just need to. We need to check out our own perceptions when we're telling, go on, mate, anyone can do it. It's like, well, we're not all the same, and society's not set up the same against us.
So just so I'm clear on what you mean by the tools. So the way I'm understanding that is, if we said to every single person, regardless of background, here's a gratitude practice, here's an exercise schedule, here is affirmations, here is a book that relevant for you, and gave it to all of them, can they all improve their lives?
Yeah, they can all improve their lives. But what I mean is, as they go to use those tools, if the tool was, let's just keep a really clean example, if the tool was Richard Wiseman, going to look round for more luck, it's going to be and we all go out of the house, three of us, posh white bloke, poor white bloke with a shit accent like me, and say like a Afro-Caribbean mum in her 30s. We're all like that. We see the opportunity. I tell you now, we're not going to be received the same way if we walk into Goldman Sachs or a marketing agency or on stage. I'm telling you now, it's not the same. So I've seen it in my own eyes. Speak to any female comedian. They followed everything to the letter. I was like, I'm supposed to be a stand-up. They pick up that mic on the first night they go on stage. They are received differently just by being female. A lot of the time by women in the audience. Where does she think she is, trying to make my bloke laugh? So do you see what I mean? They've used everything you've said, but when they've gone out there, because of where they're from and their level of privilege or lack of it, it doesn't mean it can't be done. Of course it can be done. It's done all day long by lots of talented people. But that's part of it as well. Okay. It's not all you. There's a world out there waiting to go, wait a minute, you've got a scumbag Essex accent, you ain't selling my watches, which I have had.
One of the things I've discovered myself through my own journey is that the things I was scared of about myself, like my internal narrative of that story I told you earlier, and other things that I thought were weaknesses, which when I accept and share, then aren't scary. In fact, they make me more unique. And I'm careful when I say this because I know I am a white male, so I do have privilege. Where does that stop? Because I think the more that I share things, the more I'm open about the things I thought were weaknesses, it actually gives me strength. So where do you think that stops for the Afro-Caribbean 30-year-old female who's... I
mean, you'd have to speak to someone. I mean, I don't want to stray into dodgy territory where I'm speaking to people whose perceptions I don't know. But I think all personal weakness can be leveraged. It's harder to leverage. Let's do an absurd example. Let's pretend I'm allergic to sunlight, right? If I go out in the sun, which is a real medical condition, so it's a more silly example. I get that. You can tell me to leverage my personal weaknesses as much as you like. Out there is sun waiting to burn me. So yes, I'm going to need an umbrella. I'm going to need a suit. I'm going to need sun cream. That's not leveraging. That's something I've got to fucking fight against. So all I'm saying is, I'm trying to provide a message of strength and hope for people that normally would watch something like, fuck off, it's all right for you. Because roll in your fuck off, it's all right for you. Factor it in. All of it can be got across, but it's all about more awareness. And personal development, we can see what I've done from the most inauspicious circumstances was mixed with an awareness of the prejudice that was stacked against me. Because I did the sociology A level, so a lot of people, 90%, maybe 100% of people on my degree had educated parents. That's something I needed to be aware of that was out of my control. I can't change. I can't suddenly make my parents more educated. I can't suddenly fill in all that education. So I needed to be aware of that prejudice and navigate around it. So yeah, it's a form of leverage. It's a form of leverage as well, but it's a sort of an awareness of factors that cannot be we must acknowledge there are factors that cannot be altered. Otherwise, it's going to be very disappointing when you find out the hard way they cannot be altered.
If we prepare ourselves with these tools, we can step into that.
Everyone has a plan. This is Mike Tyson's quote. Yeah. Everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. Mm-hmm. I love that quote. Me too. So the best plan, stick your chin out, ready to be hit.
Yeah.
That's the thing to do.
Yeah.
Not any of that shit. Because I can't, unless I go and get elocution lessons, I can't change the way I sound. And there's nothing I could do about the fact that my dad drove a van, and on my first day at Halls, he marked all the girls' tits out of 10 loudly so they could hear. I can't change that. I can't change it because my dad was a steroid using alpha male and probably would have knocked me out if I corrected him. I can't change that. But I knew it was coming. I was ready for it. So I rolled with the punch rather than, how to not get punched. A book by Russell Kane. It's bullshit. You're going to get punched.
We're 100% going to get punched over and over and over again, sometimes physically as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think absolutely right. It's amazing to hear your views on that. I completely agree. I think something that you've had, whether this is DNA or whether this, conditioning or you've learned it yourself, is courage, because you have to have that in the face of adversity. Both times you took a leap of faith. Interested to now go on the, when you did the stand-up leap of faith, because that is a leap of faith in the bigger sense of leaving the job, but also just stepping onto the stage.
That is a fucking skid mark leap of faith that anyone's do. And it was because of all the things, I won't recap, but because of all the shit we've just spoke about without getting my tiny violin out again, I'd stand up you don't go to the, and there'll be a lot of middle class people watching this. You don't go to the theatre when you're growing up if your mum, not because your mum and dad are bad, but because they're working their tits off. So you don't, you do a bit of panto at Christmas, but you don't like theatre and comedy club. It's just not. It's like asking me what parts of Mogadishu in Somalia are like. I have no knowledge. I've never been there. It's not part of me. So that's what theatre and stand up was to me. Neutral, a completely foreign land I knew nothing about. Obviously I knew stand-up comedy was a thing because my dad would watch Jimmy Jones and Jim Davison doing racist jokes and Bernard Manning and all that, but that's all I knew. For me, comedy was The Young Ones, Blackadder, Men Behaving Badly. That's what I thought British comedy was. I didn't realise there was this whole new thing. Been going since I was a baby, where people stood on stage and did what's called alternative comedy. I mean, I was a baby when that started because it wasn't on telly, and didn't get on telly till 2002 when Live at the Apollo started, hosted by Jack Dee. That's the first time alternative comedy went mainstream. I'm sure Channel 4 was doing weird things at 11 p.m. at night. I wouldn't have seen shit like that when I was a baby.
Is alternative comedy what we're now seeing as today's stand-up?
I mean, where you're not telling gags. You're not telling racist, sexist one-liners that you haven't written. Jokes that were passed around. There were these male comedians, the odd female one, just one-liners that were passed around. You didn't author the jokes. They weren't from a personal place. They weren't about you. It was just the delivery. If you were good at telling gags, like Bernard Manning, love him or hate him, the guy was a genius at what he did, no doubt about it. So I thought, well, that's not my world. Didn't know what the Edinburgh Festival was. Thought it was something to do with ballet and just posh fuckers doing opera. That's what it meant to me. I'd heard it. And then, of course, I got to uni, and just by chance, I picked the one uni in the country that didn't have a stand-up night. Most unis have stand-up. My one, for whatever reason, didn't. So I end up all these years. By now, I'm 25 years old in an ad agency without having ever watched stand-up in live. Certainly, I'd seen a VHS once. My friend was obsessed with Robin Williams and Eddie Murphy, which I found totally unfunny and American, and didn't even finish watching it. So can you imagine being 25 and having no contact? All I knew was, I realise I'm not being particularly amusing today because you got me on one, but I'm like the funny guy. So I was always making all my mates laugh. I was pitching all the advertising business. They'd get me up at a pitch and I'd do jokes. I've always been the funniest person I know. So at 6 a.m, when we were 18 and in from the club, I could go do like weird characters and people would have to leave the room and throw up where I made them laugh so much. But that was just me. I just thought I was a funny bloke. And then someone, Stephen Workman, thank you, every interview I mention his name, the creative planner at the office was like, you're the funniest fucker I've ever met in my life. You should try stand up. You'd be fucking great at it. And I just thought, why would I do that? That sounds horrific. And he said, just think of the funniest 5 stories, and just go and do them at a local comedy club. So I was like, I knew nothing about it. I'll never forget, I Googled stand-up comedy London and I clicked the first link that came up. That was my Comedy Cafe, Rivington Street. Never heard of it. Phoned them. I want to try stand-up. How does it work? You come and do an amateur night. Our first spot is in August because all the comedians are a bit Edinburgh. Didn't know what Edinburgh was. Thought it was ballet. Googled that. It's this big festival. There's a thing called a Perrier Award, which everyone wants to win. Frank Skinner, who by now is a TV host. What? He was a stand-up. I didn't even know. David Baddiel. I thought they were just like football lads. And Mary Whitehouse Experience was characters, not stand-up. And then I sort of did all this research. So I had 2 weeks until this spot. That's when I went to see stand-up for the first time. In that 2 weeks, I went to 2 stand-up gigs. I went to Jongleurs. I didn't understand the snobbery and the difference between all the clubs, so I just went to Jongleurs. In fact, it was a work night, and they were asking for suggestions, and I went, well, can we do stand-up? Because I want to watch it. So we did it. We've got a table. Don't remember any of the acts I saw, just remember laughing. Then I went to the Comedy Store, sat and with these great seats in the stalls, and just I remember not being able to breathe. I didn't know what had happened to me. And I was like, that was fucking amazing. I was like, I'm going to definitely want to go at that. And that was as far as my thinking went. Like, it's like watching someone go on the punching machine and you know you're not going to be any good, but you want to go, or doing a bungee jump once. So that's as far as my thinking went. Something to tell the grandkids. Do you know what? I once tried a stand-up gig. I actually went up and did it. It'd be something just to tell people. So it wasn't a leap of faith is, I'm going to do stand-up. It was a dare. Like, I don't know, if you've ever been skinny dipping, you do it once just to say you've done it and you probably never do it again if you're not into nudity. Or I can't think of another example. Or maybe do a boxing match just once to see what it's like. It was in that category, just to try it. That was as far as I went. Of course, I went up and I was like, fucking hell, have a bit more of that and a bit more and a bit more. It's like trying a drug, and then I was off.
Did you feel like you were quite good day one, like evening one?
No, the first is really disappointing because most people's first gig stories, I was awful and I was booed off, or I just knew straight away, and it was just really medium, quite good,
okay.
Couple of laughs, but the laughs were like, I've never tried heroin or cocaine or anything like that. I don't like drugs like that, but it was like what I imagine those drugs feel like, crack when you try them, like. What the fuck was that? And that was just the disappointing 6 out of 10 laugh I got at this open spot. And I was like, phew. It was like crack going in almost one, and it went. So I was like, I've got to do it again. The next night, there was a gap the next night because of the people I was on with were all like losers like me who just wanted to talk to strangers. So I went the next night to the King's Head in Crouch End.
Oh, wow.
And I did it there. Well, the next night was different. You know, it's my second gig and I absolutely fucking spanked it, which doesn't happen. And that was it then. I went on the Time Out site, or it might even still have been a magazine then, and just circled call here for open spots, and I just filled my diary up. That's the beauty of living in London. Another privilege which people never ever check is there's the ability to practice this 3, 4, 5 nights a week. That's almost impossible unless you live in Manchester, Bristol or London. How you can do it?
Yeah.
I was, again, luck and privilege. So I just did that over and over and over again for 3 years. And then I started winning these amateur awards. I'm still working. I won Laughing Horse New Act of the Year. I took a week's holiday, went up to Edinburgh to see what it was all about. Fucking won that. No, came runners up, So You Think You're Funny. And then this agency was like, do you want to do like a little run? So I had to ask for a sabbatical from work, unpaid leave for 2 months. Went on tour, which was a different skill, so it wasn't as successful. It was good some nights, other nights I was atrocious because theatres were different to being really weird and alternative and different in comedy club. You need stagecraft for a more mainstream audience in their shirts with their wines. You can't be all London and experimental, so I had to learn that the hard way, but I did learn it. So by the time I got to 3 years in, I thought, I've got to do an Edinburgh show and see what happens, and then I had to leave work. That's when I had to leave my really, really well-paid advertising job. But the door cracked open, so that wasn't so much of a leap. It was scary, but because the door was only cracked open, that could slam shut. And then I went up to Edinburgh, and then I started getting nominated for this Perrier Award, this thing I just read about, like a mystical thing. And then I won the fucker in 2010, the main one. It's over there, that big fucking blue one, Best Show 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I mean, what you've just explained there, because there's different forms of a leap of faith. There's like the big dramatic leap and you know, just falling.
Yeah.
People say you either build a plane and you fly it, or you jump and you build it on the way down.
And that was the uni one.
That was the uni one, building on the way down.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I use an analogy calling following the breadcrumbs, which you've just explained there perfectly. Which you do the first one. Yes, you said it was medium, but you weren't booed off, you weren't shit,
yeah.
And you got a feeling which drove you to try it again. And then on the second one, you smashed it. You're like,
it's just the high from it. I've never experienced a high like that in my life, and I've been Ibiza 26 times.
do you still get the same thing? Is it still as intense now?
Yeah, more.
Is it?
So the only thing that's different is the pre-nerves, which I've got on top of, because I was a bit of a nightmare, like crawling up the walls, all of that, having to really do like boxing warm-ups and everything to get through to get fucking, come on then, cunt, and on the stage.
To get some energy out before you get on stage.
Yeah, just to deal with the nerves. But now I can be in a more relaxed state before I walk up, a more sort of limbering. The guy you'd be more scared of in the pub. You're not scared of, come on in, cunt. You're scared of the guy. Do you want to come over here for a little chat? I'm more like him now.
Bit calmer.
Last night, because, do you see that? I'm so high and I'm having to hold it in because I don't want the other comics to think I'm a dick. I'm so buzzing off of having done well to 80 people at a socially distanced gig where I was being unpaid last night. It's no different from doing 5,000, which I've done many times at festivals. 4,000 just to come to see me at the Hammersmith Apollo. The buzz is, the initial rush is a lot more when you walk out, infinitely more in an arena, but the after buzz is the same from 10 people. Now, most people don't keep that. That's not normal. That is abnormal. Don't know why. I've just found the thing I was made to want to do. I won't say made to do because it sounds arrogant, but the thing I was made to feel fulfilled by attempting to do is a better way to phrase it.
Yeah, no, I want to ask you more about that because there's a big element of purpose. Is there anything specific that you do before performing then, like to manage those nerves? Because people, whether they're going in the boardroom and pitching or just delivering a motivational talk, I do some motivational talks as well, they'll be able to relate to that. You know, I think it's far scary going on and telling jokes, but what do you do to manage that energy so you can still perform?
Well, so even though I probably seem very confident, I'm one of those extroverts that's confident in a small group where I know everyone, or if I'm with my small group where I know everyone and there's another group of strangers, I'm still fucking, where'd you get that guy? Like confidence on crack. Where I've never had confidence my whole life, well, sort of after puberty, I would say, I was fine like before about 12, I'd get up and do all the school play, is when it's just me and all strangers. Bottle goes completely. Who knows why, but complete gone. So, which is weird because not many comics have that. Not many they're all nervous and they're shape, but not many people went as far as I did. Throwing up, diarrhea, just fucking awful. Really bad. I called it the filthy Catherine wheel, where you don't know what end to put on the toilet. Really bad. Lost nearly half a stone in my first year of doing stand-up. Just couldn't. It wasn't improving at all. It wasn't like getting less each time. If anything, it was getting worse. Stand-up's one of those things where the more you know about it, the scarier it gets, because it can be the awful when it goes wrong, and it will go wrong, and it does go wrong. So I tried a number of things. I went to see cognitive behavioural therapist, read self-help books, and all of those things really all together were to do with, some of it is you've got to find somewhere to stick the physical energy. So the heart palpitations, so a lot of stretching, jumping on the spot, a lot of movement. So try and get it out of here into the body where it's fine. And anyone can deal with a twitchy leg, but a mind going, you shit, everyone's going to boo you off your account. That's harder to deal with. Twitchy leg, fine, no one's going to mind about that. So if you can be difficult without looking like a nutter in a hallway. Find a toilet, pretend you've forgotten your keys, go out to the car park, do a nutty running on the spot, anything to take the edge off that energy. And it's, no surprise, lots of positive visualization. Close your eyes. There's you. There's everyone that stood up giving you standing ovation. There's you storming the gig. I don't even need to use these things anymore. But I used to have to write a blog, a journal. I would do a diary about how the gig went before I did it. What a great gig it was tonight. I went on. I couldn't believe it. I improvised for 5 minutes. There was some crazy shit. I would actually write a fake diary entry. That's a good one. So
it's a real diary entry.
Yeah, but you're describing in the past tense what's happened, even though you haven't done the gig yet.
And you bring it to reality.
Yeah, but there wasn't, I can't guarantee there's going to be someone in the front row with a funny hat. But in my diary entry, there was. So really literal details of things, if that's not going to throw you. So a combination of all those, stick the nerves physically. Now, for me, what happened, and the visualization worked, the confidence worked, and my first 10 gigs were great. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to know what gig number it was where this happened, because it could be further in than I remember. It definitely wasn't more than 6 months. And I kept sticking the energy in my legs, as I say. But one night it went on with me. So instead of staying at the side of the stage, I mean, I was always going on and going, I'm going to tell you a few things about myself, quite sort of talking like I am now. But one night I went on and it stayed in the legs, and it went on like what you see now, what you see alive, the Apollo, all of that. It just stayed in the body, which goes against what all the self-help books tell you. They stick the nerve somewhere so you can be this serene thing. Well, obviously what I'm doing is slightly different, because it's very funny if someone turned up in a meeting doing that. Would be hilarious. You'd lose the job. But if you're a comedian, you keep the job. So I was like, I hope I can do that again. And in the end, I couldn't. This is not a persona. I'm not like, well, I do my high energy thing to earn money. That is me. That was the real me I'd accessed. So that's the way it was last night. That's the way it is every single fucking night. I mean, I'm talking we're talking 15, 16 years of gigs. Maybe twice I've gone on with low energy because I was ill or something.
It's really nice to hear. There's an element there of just accepting who you are and letting it just do its thing. Just being yourself. I find so many times in these conversations it returns to someone just being themselves. Yeah,
but the physical nerves I can't think of many other environments where it would be appropriate to show it over explicitly, where it would be useful.
You can channel it. I suppose it's a form of channeling.
Yeah, well, I challenge it, but I took on the negative aspects with it, like the twitchiness, the can't stand still. I took it on, and that's exactly what Lee Evans did as well.
And maybe this isn't relevant for people doing a motivational talk or a pitch, but
no, you want the energy in you, but centered. Whereas mine's off all over the shop, half finished sentences. When I've got follow spot at the big gigs, they toss a coin for who's going to do me. No one wants to do me.
But the bit I was watching of you the other day, when I was my abs were hurting the following morning, was. And what's lovely to hear you talking about the conditioning and seriously, because you're operating on so many layers below what your stand-up is. That's obviously where the material comes from. Yeah. And you're talking about the upper class, and I can't remember like the whole run of the joke, but in the end you're doing like the impression of the old guy. I was like, sorry.
Oh yeah, that one, yeah.
Daily Telegraph.
Shagging during Brexit and all that. Yeah. That's good. That's one of my favourite routines. I use that for my corporate work. That routine. It's such a banker. I take that into environments where you think it's going to be. They're not there for the comedy. The highest earning environments for stand-up, this is the paradox of my business. So the biggest commercial opportunities in comedy are in the spaces where comedy is not welcome. I cannot think of another business where you would go to the places where comedy is least wanted and put it there by the audience.
But do you know what?
Corporate environments.
There's something, but there's something about life is so serious, and I've left that world not too long ago. Life is so serious there. You're not allowed to be yourself. Again, return to be yourself. You suppress laughter, humour. I couldn't march that much anymore. No. And that's why it's so desperate to get out this laughter, this joy, this blissfulness that we all have inside of us, but we put it to the side because we're the account manager or the regional manager.
Totally. And that's why, because my other big area I work in is male mental health. In fact, the work I was doing last night, is I think that's what's missing when a lot of really well-meaning people, and a lot of it work is brilliant, particularly Calm and Rethink and the Prince's Trust. They're my three main things I work on. Yeah. But I know it's becoming increasingly wrong to say men are like this and women are like this and be binary and all that. I'm not doing it to try and trigger or annoy anyone, but let's say traditional, I hate the word cis, men. Humour works in the way it doesn't with posh white men or girls. I don't think women would take very kindly to me cracking jokes, about breast cancer or whatever. But men do take well to cracking jokes about testicular cancer. It is the way to get men to do it, to talk about it. I'm not talking about the check-in campaigns, because there's a lot of breast cancer campaigns. I work with Copperfield who do utilise humour, but we're talking about tragedy, loss, depression, male insecurity. You have to have been a working class man to understand how men use humour. I need to tell you something. I split up with my wife. He split up with his wife, I can't. And that's the first stage of us talking about it, is me pointing and laughing and mugging you off. I mean, that feels like such a dangerous space to be in, but it's a space I want to explore, because I think then you get to get to some men who haven't necessarily come along what I call the cardigan journey. I'm ready to talk about my mental health in my cardigan with my digestive biscuit. We need those as well, but a lot of Terrys and Daves get left behind, and they're the people I'm interested in.
But I think
That's what I'm talking about. That comes off the back of you saying humour is waiting to be released in unexpected places.
Yeah, and I use that myself because the reason I'm an ambassador for Calm Mental Health Charity is because I experienced my own journey with that, which is when stuff bubbled up that I buried for years about my childhood and stuff. And humour is the way to turn it around on so many occasions. Like I'll literally search one of yours or James A. Castle or a Gervais and just know that I'm going to laugh.
Yeah.
I just know that I'm going to laugh. And sometimes you can't build yourself to laugh at that stuff on your own, and you need that. And I think we fear so much, we're scared of so much, which sometimes stops us doing stuff. And that's why I love talking about the leap of faith, because that is people pushing through that feeling. But things like health conditions and how people make jokes about cancer and stuff like that, we're scared of it. We don't talk about it. So to have it spoken about, but in the form of a joke, is sometimes the only way we accept it.
It needs to be carefully done as well, because the problem with jokes about cancer or rape or any of those things, the reason I tend to stay away from them is they affect everyone in the audience, and there are going to be people there that don't want that approach to talking about cancer. They don't mind talking about it, but they don't want to laugh about cancer and rape, so I stay away. Whereas if I'm talking about working class men's mental health, well, I'm only going to talk to people that are either married to those men or are those men. So it's a safer taboo area to steamroll humour in. I'm not courageous enough to go, well, I'm going to do a rape gag, because if we're all talking about rape's less scary, because it doesn't make it less scary for some people. So that's the only note of caution I would say with stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to hear. That's having empathy for people. Sometimes people just want the reaction.
Or you could call me cowardly. And I just think if you're going to go taboo, it's better if you part of that taboo. It's safer as a comedian. At the end of the day, people have spent 20, 30, 40 quid for a night out. I don't want someone to go home crying just because I was being brave and experimental on stage. That's just the way I look at comedy. A lot of people disagree with me and go, it's an art form. Fuck you. People should be challenged. I'm not that guy. I am. I want you to laugh. And when you go to work on Monday, you feel amazing. End of.
I've got two more questions. So I don't know whether the comedy world is like magicians where they don't want to share their secrets, right? But could you help us? Because as much as it's about leap of faith and following your purpose and passion, it's also about performance. And that's why I was fascinated to hear about going on stage. But how could you deconstruct a joke for us? Like,
which one? Do you mean deconstruct it, or do you mean talk about its creation?
Yeah, like how you make it funny, like how you create it. Like the one I'm thinking, which I absolutely love, is your ledges gag.
Yeah,
because that's so true. And I think maybe that's partly why it's funny, right?
Yeah. So you're referring. So we're referring to a routine where I talk about every stage of life you get to. You'll think you're grown up and go, well, now I'm at the old stage. I'm 18. I've made it. I fucking know I got to university, and then the smoke clears, and there's another ledge called graduating. Like, there's another one, and you get there, and there's another one called being married, and it carries on and on until the moment you realise the ledges don't end. You're in a nursing home and you just die. That is the final ledge, Alzheimer's. Yeah. So. How does that come about? So the reason I was just looking around then, I was looking for my phone to see what my latest note I've put in, because I could talk. I'll talk. If we look for a one that isn't a routine yet, and one that I might choose to turn into a routine later on, we can do it. We can do it right here live. So
that'd be amazing. And just before you do, because the ledges, it's so true. I think a lot of us, myself included, I've been guilty of this. Is you live of expecting to get, when you get there, you expect everything's going to be okay. Yeah. But you take yourself to, as you call it, the ledge. You take yourself into that ledge and you're still the same person. You're like, oh, fuck.
It's because there's a narrative around that your parents teach you, and we believe that, life it changes around you slowly, and before you know it, you're at a different level. And I think that's partly true, but I also think it's mixed with revolutions and sudden jumps. So we're all familiar with that. And before I knew it, I was old and I had kids. Where did that go? But we're less keen to acknowledge there were stages where it did suddenly change quickly. When your baby was born, your life changed like that.
Yeah.
Within anywhere between 1 and 36 hours, depending on how unlucky you are, ladies, with the labour. But your life has changed fundamentally overnight. Or the first night you went to uni, or the first night after you lost your virginity, or the first night after you smoked your first spliff, or whatever it is. Don't take drugs, kids. But do you know what I mean? There are profound and sudden massive jumps. Anyway, I mean, that particular routine was created in exactly the same way. So the last note to go in was today, me and Lindsay had an argument about thermostats. Where we're renovating our house, and I don't want the thermostat to be in the hallway. I want the thermostat to be in the lounge where we sit the whole time. So my father-in-law's like, you can't do that. You have to put the thermostat in the hallway. The hallway regulates the house. And I think that's totally ridiculous, because why would you want the hallway to be set at 20 degrees when it's got cold air blowing at it, so it thinks it's colder than it, so it thinks I better heat up, and you're being roasted alive in the lounge? Have the fucking thermostat in the room where you live, so that my skin is 20, the thermostat, no, it doesn't work like that. Why doesn't it work like that? Fuck the hallway, the dictator, right? So that bit of anger is quite funny. I won't sit down at a laptop. I will not write up the thermostat routine. How can I make that funnier? I will literally, when I preview my next tour show, take what I've said to you on stage, that is it, and say that to a tiny preview audience of about 30 people when I've got my notes on the floor, and listen. If they all watched that whole thing, going and did smiling stony face and didn't really laugh, in the bin, never spoken of again, gone completely. It's just something that made Lindsay laugh, but not me, which is hundreds of things. If they went, oh, that's really funny, and laughed at the insight, I would then tell it the next night and add a few more bits, maybe an impression of my father-in-law, maybe an impression of Lindsay, and listen in a Darwinian way, with slow increments of change, building it until it's a 3-minute thing. I do approximately 30 to 40 previews before I do a first gig in a 1,000-seater. That's it. Now, not everyone writes like that. A lot of people will sit on their laptop and write a beautifully written routine, learn it, rehearse it, and perform it till it sounds natural. Obviously, they'll make slight verbal changes. The most pure form of that would be Tim Vine, who will literally write his own one-liners and perform them. There's loads of people in between. And then there's a few people like me who I would say aren't comedians but have monetized their personalities. Because I don't write, you will not find a single sentence of stand-up on any laptop or file in this room. You'll find loads of bullets like that I then take on stage. And the Ledges routine, so what happens is, do you remember learning about Oxbow Lakes at school? So an Oxbow Lake, in geography, you learn about rivers, and a river bends like that. And then what happens is with erosion, the river bends more and more. Do you remember? Until eventually a bend in the river gets so extreme, it gets clipped off. Do you remember? So it becomes like a random little bit of water. And then the river carries on flowing straight again. And that bit at the end is called an Oxbow Lake. And you'll see them all up. Just Google one if you want to see one. So a river will do that for about 100 years and then an Oxbow Lake forms. So that Ledges routine was a linking bit between two different routines. It was never a routine. So I was in the theatre. You'll have to forgive me because I'm going to have to pretend I remember what the two routines were. I don't know off the top of my head. But let's just say I was doing a routine about when you go clubbing and then you have to suddenly stop, and then a really funny routine about my first job. I did. That wasn't it, but that's probably what happened. I probably said one night, and when you think you've grown up, you look up, you're like, there's another bit of life, and leap. And it would have got a massive unexpected laugh. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? The next night I would have built another ledge in. And eventually... fuck the routine about getting drunk, fuck the routine about first job. The Oxbow Lake is separated and it's become a routine in its own right. That's a different writing style to what I just described. So the first one is a bullet point of something funny that's happened with the thermostat, which I use the Darwinian technique to build. The second one was a linking boring bit that's been clipped off a routine that I then used the So the building techniques are the same, the Darwinian slow incremental changes, looking for laughs and expanding the story. But the harvest technique was different on those occasions. The most common harvest technique is the first one, because I'm always messing around and funny stuff happens and I'm always laughing at dinner, and then I'll get my phone out and make a note because I said something hilarious at dinner, or a waiter spilled a drink on Lindsay's lap and it's kicked off. I'll write like drink on Lindsay's lap at the pub in Wilmslow and I'll remember to describe it. That's 90% of it. But now and again, you've just happened to have picked one that's harvested from a more unusual technique. It fell off. It was a boring linking bit that fell off that happened to have a laugh. Then I kept pushing it each night until I thought, well, the natural conclusion is nursing home death.
It's amazing insight, mate.
So that's how it works.
Thanks for telling us. I love that. That's absolutely
But that's
amazing.
not the usual comedian writing style. I think it's much more normal to write your shit down properly.
Yeah. How I'm linking that back to life is like when we all need. So, from a sales perspective, I used to say that everybody goes to the bonfire to stick around and stand around the bonfire, but we all go for the firework display, but we all stick around at the end for the bonfire. So the bonfire is that consistent thing that we have, and that might be your bullets that you write down. They're your consistent bit of material, but the firework is that thing that's kind of unexpected that came your Oxbow Lake.
Yeah, the Oxbow Lakes are, to be honest with you, it's when you're getting a bit desperate, really. So you'll go through the tour show before and think, were there any middle bits that got a laugh? And I'll just put those into preview and see what they do. But a sales pitch would work exactly this. There'll be two types of salespeople: those that learn their pitch word for word and follow it, and those that are more like me. And it's just whatever suits your personality, really.
More intuitive.
But the good thing about the benefit of my style of comedy is if you come to 2 tour dates, you'll be amazed at how different they are. Because obviously I don't have set wording. So that Legends routine will have different wording every night, different examples. The downside of that is I'm less likely to come up with a Peter Kay type routine that'll be remembered in 100 years. Because it's much more like, I'm just talking about, I've just monetized, I'm just a bloke with a mic. So I can be funnier, but not necessarily the iconic Chris Rock quote it in 100 years type routine.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Bothered, don't care. I don't want to be remembered. I just want to have an absolutely amazing 100 years.
Not much to ask for, is it?
No, I just don't. Who gives a shit about it? The egoism of giving a shit about what happens after you die. As long as Minna has got enough and is set up, and then if I'm lucky enough to see her children born, Minna's my daughter, I don't really care about being remembered.
I said I've got 2 more, so this will have to be the last one. I wanted to talk to you about tipping points because I don't know your answer. Some people see a tipping point in either one of their leaps of faith or if they've only had one. I know your answer is that there isn't a tipping point, or I believe that's probably what you're going to say.
What do you mean, tipping point to what's going to uni?
Going to uni or going into stand-up, was there a defining moment?
Yeah, when I saw how posh uni was and that I could be getting up late.
But then I feel like when I'm listening to your story, that your graft and everything that you did was...
That was after that.
Years. Okay.
I didn't read a word of Jane Austen until I saw posh people drinking cider on the grass. Okay. I was like, fuck, I'm having it. It's a very specific tipping point. It's that diary entry. Today's the day I'm going to change. I wish I could find that diary. Today's the day I'm going to change my life, and sent off A-levels through the post.
Do you still do...
Just tipped me over. It tipped me over an edge I didn't know I was on.
Okay, amazing. Right,
so far as the stand-up one, it was... I wasn't tipped because I did it in a kind of... I wasn't even into it. I didn't care about it. So I wasn't I had no passion, no interest, and no affinity for it whatsoever. I found the idea of it totally boring. I like books and films and going out. I still don't go and watch stand-up. So how can I be tipped by something I wasn't interested in and had no passion for? It was a dare that mixed with an accidental lifelong training of making my mates laugh. The power of accident and luck cannot be overstated. What should be stated strongly is you can control those. As paradoxical as that sounds, you can control accidents and luck by keeping your eyes open.
Yeah. I was going to say how, but yeah, by keeping your eyes open.
By alertness, by the same way you can reduce accidents on the road through alertness, you can increase good accidents in life by... we had a guest on the show the other week. I do a show on Channel 4 called Steph's Packed Lunch with Steph McGovern.
Yeah.
And it was a book about... You should totally... I will have to try and remember it after this, I'm afraid, so I can't remember it.
Fiction?
No, a really short book. You'll read it in one sitting. It's called something like Wild Thing, or Wild Things it might be called. He's a teacher, and it's all about bringing some of the childlike impulsiveness back to your life because you never know what will happen. And it's how we forget to play. Play is an important thing with personal development. We forget how to play. We take it all seriously and it's all charts. You forget to ask around a bit. And he said, it's all just different play things you can do to bring this childlike wonder. And he said, today, turn down a turning you've never turned before. After you drop your kids at school, just go down it and do something you've never done. Break a rule you've never broken before the next day. Both those times led to something amazing. I've been living in this house we're in now for 4 years. I'm married to a girl from this area. And the thing I hate about this house is there's no green spaces around. We're in like a proper Legoland estate. So I dropped my daughter at school and I turned left under the pissy, skanky, junky flyover where people just piss and teenagers get off with each other. So I thought I'm going to go under there. What is under it? I know it's the A34. There's nothing under it. Under it, 2 minutes, a stile, a field, a paradise forest. Someone's developed it with white sand next to a river. It's like something you do, close your eyes in your mindfulness space. I took pictures of it and I came out and told Lindsay, I can't believe what I found. We've gone over there and had like picnics and beach. It's a silly example. It's a literal example. But it just goes to show you the amount of times you walk past a turning, it's boring. Not a literal turning. Please don't start turning down all alleyways. But in anything, just take a turn it and go and see a show you never shown. Go and do something you haven't done. So that you can increase your luck and accidents by taking these turnings. Read that book, Wild Things. It's really good.
Amazing. Thank you, mate. 3 quick fire.
Yeah.
Last 3. One thing you're excited about at the minute. Could be anything, however you interpret it.
Most thing I'm excited about is my first undistanced gig, getting back on stage. I just can't, I don't know, I might even cry when I'm bowing. So I did Watford Palace Theatre the other weekend, and to see 100 people in a 700 seat, it was a great gig, but it's just a bit heartbreaking.
Yeah. When is it?
Who knows?
Oh, okay.
It all comes down to Boris, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When is Freedom Day? Is it July the 19th? Who freaking knows? I've sold a lot of gigs in August and September undistanced. Will I do them? Who knows?
Hopefully.
Second thing I'm most excited about, holidays. I just love flying. I love holidays. Did you ask me 3 things or just one?
No, three quick fires.
All right, yeah.
But I'll take that.
Being back on stage.
Where are you going to go?
Holidays.
Where are you going to go?
Who knows? I've got 3 things booked on free cancellation.
Really?
York, Portugal, Italy.
Nice.
So they're all through to judges' houses.
Okay. One habit you'd recommend all listeners to incorporate into part of their day. It could be a habit, or I know you're into life hacks. Like if you have a favourite life
Exercise.
hack. Exercise.
Exercise.
Did you train this morning?
Yep.
Is that where you came from when I saw you?
No, I showered first and then afterwards. But yeah, exercise, definitely. So just Google Frank Grillo workout. The guy's 56, looks fucking amazing. He's got a workout based around a chair and the smallest single bedroom you can imagine. Don't join a gym. Don't do any of that shit. Get a chair. Don't buy weights. Just get a chair. That's
Grillo.
all you need. Jog on the spot. He's an actor. Just jog on the spot, or anyone. Just design a workout that's bullshit proof and that only lasts 10 minutes and start with that. If it's a chair and it's 10 minutes long, anyone can do it. Someone who lives in a chair can do it. I've got to park, I've got to get to the gym, I've got to head my shower. All of those things are blocks.
Yeah.
It's just the body links to mind. Start exercising, eating right, particularly if you're past 30.
Yeah. Last one. Take yourself back to a key moment in your life, whenever it is.
Yeah.
Imagine there's 2 versions of yourself. There's the one who's gone on to achieve all the amazing things you've done and it's sat here in front of me. And there's one who didn't do any of those things. What's the separator?
I think I'm the second one, to be honest. So the key moment, the first moment that came into my life is winning that big arse award behind you there. And I think there's a much more successful version of me that isn't sat here today.
Oh, really?
Who probably didn't spike their hair really high and put a bleach streak in it and disappear up their bumhole for 2 years, which I did. I'm incredibly successful now. Don't get me wrong. I play absolutely massive rooms. I lead a very, very comfortable lifestyle and I've got a very successful family. But had I not made a few of those bell end mistakes, maybe I'd be working in Hollywood or something like that. I'm glad I'm not. Fuck that life, because I would have gone there and done it, because I wouldn't have yet met Lindsay and I wouldn't have had kids and I wouldn't have done any of that. But there is a version of me. I made 2 massive mistakes and I haven't really made many mistakes. And that was turning into a show-off, shallow idiot that stopped being true to myself. Only a year, but it cost me a couple of key jobs and changed tack. I'm glad where I've ended up, because I've ended up doing probably what I should be doing, which is stand up in theatres. But I think I could have gone off and done films and stuff. But I made a couple of errors that I'm glad I've made. So I don't know if anyone's ever answered that to you before, but I've ended up as version 2, which I'm happy with.
Amazing perspective. Yeah. No one said it like that before.
And it's real lesson, really. It's probably unique to my industry. stand up, people like to feel they know who you are. I'm saying my nan this, my council estate that, my this, my that, and then I start wearing like gold jewellery and turning up in nightclubs, and people are like, well, what are you then? Are you my nan this, my nan that? Are you boy next door Russell Howard, or are you Russell Brand? Which Russell are you?
Yeah.
I think I just lost my way. Only for a year. And I met a good woman, fucking got the eyeliner off my face, got a good manager who got me in a suit. I was like, stop dressing like a pleb. I sorted my shit out, and the work came flowing back in. But it was enough realisation for me to work out what I wanted as well. It ain't all about the highest profile shit.
Mate, it's been such a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
honestly,
Dave.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.